Hello and welcome to this special event, Small Business and the Election, a discussion with Representatives Nick LaLota of New York and Representative Sylvia Garcia of Texas. This webcast is presented by Biz2Credit. The program will begin in approximately 20 seconds. A recording of today's webcast will also be made available in the Biz2Credit Webcast Center following the conclusion of the session. Before we begin, please note that this webcast and all answers provided by the participants are meant solely for informational purposes and are not to be considered substitutes for legal or tax advice. Business loans and other federal lending programs are not guaranteed and are issued at the sole discretion of the lender in conjunction with SBA or other governmental agency guidelines as applicable. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of Biz2Credit, its affiliates, or partner companies that may be mentioned in this webcast. We'll begin today's session with a quick look at our agenda before introducing our Master of Ceremonies for today's webcast. The webcast will last approximately 45 minutes, and we will cover a number of important agenda points with the representatives who have joined us today. First, we'll hear from Representatives LaLota and Garcia about their work in the Financial Services and Small Business Committees, respectively, as well as their broader campaign initiatives supporting small businesses in this pivotal election year. The representatives have also agreed to answer pre-selected questions from the audience that we have received ahead of time. And we invite all who are participating or watching us live on LinkedIn and YouTube to submit questions in the comments and Q&A section to the side of your video viewer. We will also hear from Biz2Credit's own CEO, Rohit Arora, about the state of small business finance and fintech as we conclude today's program. And now, with great pleasure, it's time to welcome our host for this afternoon's webcast, Biz2Credit CEO Rohit Arora, who will introduce our guests for this special event. Rohit, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Rohit Arora. I'm co-founder and CEO of Biz2Credit. I'm very proud to present this webinar today. This comes at a very opportune time. Sorry, I'm just like switching on the camera. Yeah, sorry. So this comes at a very opportune time, and we are very fortunate to have two small business ranking members of the Congress, and I'm honored to introduce first Congressman Nick LaLota from New York. He has a very rich history of public service in his family, as well as he himself has served in Navy before getting elected to the U.S. Congress, and he's very focused on helping and empowering small businesses in the country for them to grow and thrive. And being on the House Committee on Small Businesses, as well as on the House Committee for Homeland Security and Armed Services, it's an honor and privilege to have him with us today. So without any further ado, I will invite him to give his opening remarks and also talk about the state of small businesses in the country, what is happening in the election year, and I think this is one of the most important time for this country.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you, and thank you for that introduction. I'm proud to be part of this bipartisan town hall with my colleague from Texas. The news will tell you that we fight about everything in Congress, and some of that is true. We fight about some foreign policy issues, certainly border policy issues recently, and some fiscal spending issues. But serving on the Small Business Committee in the House, there's been a lot of bipartisan concurrence on how to move America's small businesses forward. I'm very blessed and fortunate for that. We've gotten a lot of decent bills out of the committee and past the floor that we expect the Senate to take action on as well. We know it's an important duty of ours in Congress to ensure that America's job creators have the resources, the policies, the tools, the support they need to keep America moving. And whether you're in New York or Texas or anywhere in between, our main streets are very important. The environment is more and more challenging. It's developing. And we've tried to do things to embrace new technologies and AI and other things that help make people more productive in some cases, but looking forward to the good conversation with everybody here today about all the different challenges and opportunities that we have with small businesses as a nation.
Yeah, so no, I think thanks for the introduction. And obviously, as we are facing a very challenging hurricane year, and we are starting to see, there was a news item today that SBA is going to run out of disaster funding for small businesses very soon. And obviously, we have seen in the past that SBA has played such a major role even during COVID and in every, I would say, starting from Hurricane Sandy, we have seen that SBA's role has become more and more critical. We at Biz2Credit are very proud to say that we have invested millions of dollars in building digital platforms to help businesses get SBA loans in a more time-bound fashion. But now the worry is that if the government doesn't have enough money, how will small businesses will get help, especially as the hurricane season is going from bad to worse right now.
Yeah, so whether it's a pandemic or a hurricane or just normal business that's developing, it's good that we do have leaders in Congress working to ensure our government policies empower and not hinder small business owners. One of my priorities is advocating for tax cuts that will help keep small businesses, help them keep more of their hard-earned money. We want to help them have access to affordable capital, because we understand that's a significant challenge for many small businesses. We want to level the playing field and promote access to grants and capital. We want to reduce regulatory burdens, making it easier for entrepreneurs to start, scale, and grow their businesses. We understand the different challenges that are out there. The Small Business Committee has, of course, Republicans and Democrats from blue states and red states, from rural counties and urban counties and suburban counties like mine. And we really try to have the pulse of the people so that we can ensure that during tough times, whether it's like what you said, natural disasters, a pandemic, or just daily business life, that government is a help, not a hindrance to progress.
Yeah, and how do you plan to tackle, because one of two things have really impacted small businesses in the country. One is the high inflation over the last 2-3 years that has really, the businesses have suffered. The second thing that we are hearing from a lot of businesses, especially in blue states right now, is that the economy is sluggish. Minimum wages have gone up quite significantly, so cost pressures are extremely high. Regulatory overload is obviously there, and people are not feeling that they can go and achieve the American dream, for which a lot of small business owners are big proponent and big believers in that. And especially headquartered out of New York, I have opportunity to personally talk to a lot of small business owners in different segments and different and in different businesses. And what we are finding uniformly across the board is that businesses are very frustrated right now, and they're also feeling that the economy is very sluggish, irrespective of the fact that whatever Fed is saying or GDP numbers are coming out, and they're also feeling a lot of burden of cost right now. So how do you propose in the next Congress to address some of these issues, because I think these issues are getting bigger and bigger every day?
I would say, look back to HR1, the first big bill House Republicans passed this year was our addressing of the inflation issue, which stood for two big purposes. One, exploring and enhancing more American energy, the thought that if we bring more of our own energy safely and cleanly out of our own grounds and stop importing much of it, that trade balance will become better, and that will help strengthen our economy and a lot of our small business, whether it's heating and cooling the business, trucking costs, or other transportation costs. A lot of the variable costs are very much linked to energy. And if American policymakers can create an environment where American energy is less expensive, we understand that will help small businesses as well. The second part is fiscal policy. That right or wrong, government spent a lot of money around the pandemic, injected a lot of capital into different markets. Most of it was to help businesses just merely survive, and of course that's good, but a lot of that money is still sloshing around and maybe doesn't serve the initial purpose it was set out to serve. And the sloshing of that money also, in my opinion, has created a lot of inflation as well. We're going to need to, in the next couple of budget cycles, rein some of that in smartly, to do so acutely. But if we do those two things, I think that we will set ourselves up well to fight the inflation issue. because what you're seeing is a higher cost in goods, but not as higher salaries as well. And that gap between the two is really the pain that people on Main Street feel right now. And I've offered, I think, just a couple of ideas as to how government can be more a part of the solution, part of the problem.
And one question which is a little surprising is that as we follow the campaign messages both from President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, while Vice President Harris has talked quite a bit about the state of small businesses in the country and what she wants to do, we haven't heard much from President Trump in this campaign cycle. Now, being a Republican congressperson and part of the small business committee, what do you think, like Trump administration, if President Trump gets re-elected as president, would you see as a signature policy to help small businesses to grow in this country? And obviously you also talked about we are going to see an impeding impact of AI technology. Global competition is going to get even more intense, and we have a huge fiscal deficit that is worrisome. But we haven't heard much from President Trump about what his policies are going to be around small businesses. So anything that you can throw some light on that will be very helpful.
Yeah, so I was quite pleased. You mentioned earlier about the downward inflationary pressures in the blue states. I was very pleased that just about 2 weeks ago, President Trump is taking a new position on the state and local tax deduction, recognizing that is a very meaningful thing to us here in the suburbs of these high tax blue states, and that he has a more sympathetic view to that is news to my ears. I know it's news to much of my constituents' ears as well. But I would hope that either a Trump or a Harris presidency will prioritize small businesses and economic growth. I think that starts with cutting red tape, rolling back burdensome regulations, and just creating an environment where businesses can thrive. I think a key part of the Trump and Republican agenda will be further tax reform to ease the financial burdens on small businesses. I mentioned SALT, other tax relief for businesses. I co-sponsor the Main Street Tax Certainty Act, which will make permanent the 20% small business deduction for pass-throughs. I think that's an important part that would help catalyze some more economic growth. I think also it's important to incentivize innovation, research, and development. And I co-sponsor the American Innovation and Research and Development Competitiveness Act, which would do just that. But the future is in the people who invest in their employees, who invest in new technologies, AI, and government should be absolutely a part of that moving forward.
No, thank you. And one thing is that one question that I would like to pose from one of your constituents, actually has been that what are some of the funding opportunities business can take advantage right now to scale or expand their businesses? So this is a guy, Badrai from New Hyde Park, New York, who's asking this question.
Good. He's a little west of me, but the SBA 7A's loan program provides up to $5 million in funding to help small business with various purposes, including expansion, purchasing equipment, or working capital. That's the SBA 7A loan program, and the loans are partially guaranteed by the SBA, and it makes it easier for small businesses to secure financing. There's also the 504 loan program, which offers long-term fixed rate financing for purchasing of fixed assets like real estate, machinery, or equipment. And we've seen a lot of businesses take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for, I think this is a very opportune time for businesses which are also looking to expand, because there's always an opportunity even in a slow market for, and that's what entrepreneurship is all about, taking advantage of opportunities and working hard. That's what the American dream is all about. With this, I would like to introduce our second guest also. So we are fortunate that we are holding a bipartisan, forum today in such an heated election and environment. And as we were talking before the webinar started, Representative Sylvia Garcia is one of the 12 Democrat Congress, members from the great state of Texas. And obviously, Texas is a very business-friendly state, and Texas has scored very high, for the, for the way businesses are conducted. And also, we are seeing a lot of movement of small businesses going and setting up or growing in Texas from some of the other states like California and other states. It's an honor to welcome Representative Garcia, and I would like her to, give her opening remarks about, how she feels about small businesses and what Congress and policymakers can do better to address, some of these burning issues right now.
Well, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here this afternoon, all the way from Texas, and I'm happy to report that it's not a hot day today. It looks like the fall is finally trying to break in. So although it's not over 100 degrees, it's at least in the high 80s. So for us, that's a welcome relief. But I'm also pleased, of course, to be here today with Congressman LaLota. While he and I don't serve on any committees, I can tell you that I concur with him in saying that, don't always just listen to what you see on the news. It's sometimes not as antagonistic as it may appear. Many of us work together on a number of issues, particularly those issues that matter to the working people in our districts and the small businesses in our districts, the schools, hospitals, all of those things that make a community strong. And certainly, I love talking about small businesses because they truly are the backbone of our communities. Just think about it. When you talk about your hometown, you probably talk about the local taqueria, at least in my district you do, or the corner store that everyone knows. These businesses are usually more than just places to shop. There's where neighbors meet and talk and maybe gossip, but it's a gathering place. It's more than just a business. So they're also major drivers of wealth in our economy. They account for 2/3 of the net new jobs and nearly half of the U.S. economic activity. Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration and the work of House Democrats in Congress, our minority-owned small businesses drove our recovery. We emerged from the pandemic faster than most countries, and we have the data to prove it. But here's the thing, we still have a lot to learn from that time. During the pandemic, minority-owned businesses were less likely to receive loans than white-owned businesses. I saw this here in Houston, where many businesses couldn't secure a Paycheck Protection Program loan in the first round. We as Congress had to step up and create carve-outs to make sure that minority-owned businesses got a fair shot. And now, even post-pandemic, we still see that some of these barriers are still around. So while we succeeded in getting the carve-out and got more money to small businesses and minority businesses, the problems may not have been completely corrected. We're coming back to the same old issues. The latest Biz2Credit Latino-owned study shows that, yes, revenues are up by 11.6%, but operating costs shot up by 22.7%. So quite frankly, for small businesses, that just sucks, doesn't it? A lot of you are working harder, but you're not seeing it reflected in your bottom line. And that's something we need to work together on in a bipartisan, bicameral way, because remember, no matter what we do, we've got to get the Senate to agree. So this is an issue that I think we need to work on in a bipartisan, bicameral fashion. So what can we do? Well, first, we need to expand programs like the SBA to make sure funding is equitable. The Biden-Harris administration has been doing a great job of this, and I imagine a future Harris administration would continue to do this. It's not just about making more loans available. It's also making sure that those loans are affordable and are at the same interest level, if you will, for other bigger companies. So we must make them affordable. It's also about making sure those loans are accessible to everyone who needs them, especially minority-owned and women-owned businesses, veterans businesses. Because again, if it's not accessible, then it might as well not even be there. And I know that's a challenge that I see when in financial services, although we don't work with SBA loans, we work with a lot of the banking and credit union issues. And access to wealth, access to capital is still a major barrier. Part of the study talks about credit scores, and that can be another major barrier to getting a loan. We have been looking at expanding the use of alternative tools like VantageScore, which utilizes non-traditional data such as rental payments, something that does show that somebody has a good history of paying the rent, that information should be just as good as if whether or not they pay consistently and regularly a loan payment or a credit card payment. So we think we need to start looking at alternative ways to test someone's ability to pay. With an updated and more inclusive scoring model, we could expand and diversify the universe of creditworthy applicants. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this impacts business financing, especially among Latinos, as we also need to address rising costs with policies that give you relief, whether through tax incentives or industry-specific support, especially in sectors like construction, where 19% of Latino-owned businesses are concentrated. I know firsthand how vital that industry is, because my district, in fact, leads the country in the number of construction workers in the United States. Now, I want to shift a little bit now to something that does sometimes create some division, but I think it's very important that we understand that immigration is shifting, and that it is important to our economic growth, because immigrants are vital to our economy. That has been recognized by many scholars and many individuals for many years. They aren't taking the jobs. They help create jobs by providing the work that's needed in businesses to grow and create more jobs. And they need security. So let's take a closer look at the facts. A recent report from the Congressional Budget Office estimated that the unexpected surge in immigration will add 7 trillion, that's trillion with a T, to our GDP over the next decade. That's huge. And 1 trillion will be in government revenue alone. So that helps not only the economy, but helps our own bottom line in Congress in terms of the revenue coming to the United States. Small business growth, especially in the immigrant communities, is a major drive of that economic boost. It is proof of what we all know, that immigrants don't just come here for a better life, they help make all our lives better. Now, under a future Trump administration, that growth would likely go away. We all know that he's already said that he wants to have this mass deportation. Of course, he's never told us how he's going to pay for it. He's never told us what the real plan is. He just always talks in concepts and just words and throws them out there. So we don't know what the cost of that would be. No one seems to be asking, but it's not been detailed. According to a 2022 survey by the Center for American Progress, more than 12,000 DACA recipients own their own business, contributed a major way to our communities. Now, many of you know DACA recipients as dreamers. I carry the DREAM Act in Congress. The DREAM Act would give these young people the security they need to keep building, investing, and growing their businesses.
So
It's
Republican
estimated
Garcia, I have one question for you, very specific here, like what I asked Representative LaLota also, is that when we look at Vice President Harris' policies about small businesses, obviously she has spoken a lot more for small businesses than President Trump. My worry is that, you know, what we have seen in this administration, and inflation is a real problem, as you have also rightly pointed out. Costs have grown faster than the revenues. Just doing tax credits and some of the other handouts, you know, or just giving more money out will actually, in my view, will increase the inflation. Will it not be better to create more opportunities and you know, more access to credit? Because one thing you have been absolutely right. We have seen it during COVID crisis and everything. Minority businesses have a harder time to get credit. We have personally advocated for more digital interventions also, you know, in that space. And we do business in US and outside of US also. And one thing I've seen in US on a bipartisan way, which I think we have to change here, is that Congress and policymakers need to get behind more to support digital interventions, because then the market economy can take care of actual access to credit. Actually, so I think I have not seen that to an extent that, you know, US can do. US is the most advanced country in the world. You know, we have all the resources if we want to do, but I haven't seen that policy push coming in. So what do you think about Vice President Harris policies around it? Because my worry is that if we just keep giving more tax credits or more of this stuff, will it again lead to an increase in inflation? Because if that happens, that has been the biggest challenge for small businesses over the last 3 years, right?
Well, she believes in, and the vice president believes in what I agree with, which is an opportunity economy, which is basically making sure that everybody has the opportunity to succeed in an economy, and that it's inclusive, working from the middle class down, and to just bolster that area. And that includes, in a very large way, the increasing access to capital, access to wealth for the small business, the woman-owned business, the veteran-owned business, but the folks that traditionally have not have had full access to this. And that does include, in some ways, technology. It includes a lot of the fintech that opportunities that are out there. And I know that for businesses, I'm not sure that they care if they walk into the bank to get the loan or they go online to get the loan, but we just have to make sure that the consumer is treated fairly, and that the business is treated fairly, and that it's inclusive and gives everyone an opportunity. So I think you'll find that the vice president's opportunity economy will be a true opportunity for all businesses to succeed.
And one question from your constituent also, which is, I think you touched upon it, of obviously, getting access to credit for minority businesses is tougher. So any specific policies that you guys are thinking about, creating a better access to funding and resources for minority and women-owned businesses? Because we see it all the time that they have a harder time to get access to credit. The good news that's starting to happen is more and more businesses are starting to go online. We are also starting to see one more very unique aspect, which is unique to US right now, is that we are seeing non-bank, money coming in, like from insurance companies, from pension funds. Like we are talking to a very large pension fund in Texas right now to roll out a program where, pension money can come directly for lending to small businesses, actually. So any specific policies that you guys can encourage through the Congress, whether it's a tax break for non-bank lenders, more opportunities for fintechs, more money goes towards, educating the customers, and borrowers about some of these opportunities, so because it will be good to hear that from you.
Well, I think the congressman mentioned, he serves on the committee. He mentioned the two programs that exist. I think making sure that those programs stay and are fully funded is going to be very important, because obviously Project 2025, which in my view is the roadmap for a new Trump administration, pretty much does away with all programs, and it does away with all civilian employees that are not beholden to the president, which means, there will be a complete new slate of people, but their allegiance will be to Donald Trump, and not to the Constitution, and not to any regulation that we might want to impose. And I think that the key here is making it accessible, making sure that it's equitable, and then making sure that it's sufficient, because a lot of these programs will end up being on the chopping block if we don't do something to protect them. If Vice President Harris doesn't have her opportunity to work on her plans.
So one last question for both the representatives here is that, one thing, being a first generation immigrant myself, I've seen that if as a country, we can have a bipartisan support on a legal immigration reform, process, this can solve a lot of these problems, because immigrants are the fountainhead and, drivers of, growth in this economy. I think I can tell you from my own personal experience and from experience of a lot of people that I know myself, the legal immigration system in this country is right now, broken, actually. So, and unfortunately, we haven't seen any meaningful discussion from both the campaigns around how to introduce legal, immigration reforms, because in my view, both the candidates support that, but there has been no real discussion around it, because that's going to be the biggest driver for small businesses, for the economy, and also that can take care of a lot of problems that we are facing as a country today.
Well, I mean, I beg to differ. Obviously, I'm the author of the Dream and Promise Act, and this covers millions of young people who came here to this country with their parents through no fault of their own. They are in their heart and their soul and their mind. They're Americans. Americans support them. The last poll I saw, close to 80% of the people asked support dreamers to get full citizenship. You can't get Americans to support anything with 80%, but they do in this case, because they know that they're here because they came with their parents. To me, when people ask me about that, I said, look, it's real simple. If you're driving down the street and you're speeding, the officer's going to give you, the driver, the ticket. They're not going to say, oh, and look at that, you've got 3 children. They're all going to get tickets too, because the children are in the car through no fault of their own. They're there with their parents. So we should not be penalizing these children. So I think that's a very legal first step that we could take. A second one, in my view, is and we passed in Congress and in the House the DREAM Act 2 other times, and this time, for the first time, I was able to secure some Republicans to sponsor. So it's the first time in history that it is a bipartisan bill. The second one is the farm worker authorization bill. When you can get the farm workers and the ranchers to agree on the bill, again, we've never seen that before. That bill too was a bill that we got out of the House, but of course it died in the Senate. But it's people that are critical to our food source, to put the food on our table, the people who pick the crops that have been here and have committed any crimes, have been educated here. Those folks need citizenship, and that's a very legal, good, soft way of beginning. Again, a great first step in immigration reform. So I think there's a lot of things that we could do, and for many instances, it begins with a work permit. I can tell you, anytime I visit any center, the first thing I'm told is that they need work permits. If they could work, they would pay for their own housing. They wouldn't be needing a detention center or a place to live. They wouldn't be roaming the streets because they can find work. And you talk to employers, they want them to work. They want them to work and be able to help them so their businesses can thrive, and they can create more jobs. So I think there has been some discussion. What we haven't had is the true consensus to move forward.
Yeah, thank you for your remarks, and I really want to thank both Congresswoman Garcia and Congressman LaLota for their candid and views both on small businesses and the state of our union right now, in a way, and also where we are, and obviously we are in a very heated time period of a very critical presidential elections, and I hope that the American dream thrives, whoever is the next president, because that's where that's what gives us, our country, a unique position in the world, and also something that millions of people across the world actually understand and dream about the American dream, which is very rare that other people in other countries are dreaming about it, and I think that's a privilege that we have as Americans, and my view is that we should try to protect that in any way and every way possible.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So as we saw, we had a very interesting and animated discussion around the policies, and also what the next administration we can expect, whether it's going to be President Trump administration or Vice President Harris administration. At Biz2Credit, we are committed to providing access to credit at the right in a right manner and at the right price for small businesses. As a mission of our company always has been to help small and mid-sized businesses, especially minority-owned and women-owned businesses. At the same point of time, we realize and understand that the last few years have been extremely challenging, starting with COVID, and after COVID, impact in the US economy. We will encourage people to come and visit our website, biz2credit.com. We have a lot of resources. One can apply online for any kind of business funding, and we are very proud to offer both alternative lending, but we also now offer SBA lending through a lot of our banking partners across the country. And in any way and form we can help small businesses in the country, we are always there 24/7. And we also look forward to getting your feedback about the session, and and any feedback which helps us to improve our offerings, our webinars, or any other topics that you want to hear about, or if you want us to invite any of other guests, if you have any ideas, we are very open to that, because the good thing with us is that we as a business are extremely bipartisan, and we get a lot of support from US Congress people as well as senators, and they always love to be on our web platforms to interact and talk to small businesses out here.
Rohit, thank you once again very much for joining us today and taking us through your insights on the state and the future of small business in the United States, along with the two representatives who we heard from today, Representative LaLota of New York and Representative Garcia of Texas. Thanks to everyone who tuned in, both on our live streams as well as on our online webcast platform. At Biz2Credit, we look forward to hosting additional sessions such as these over the next several months, both leading into the election and subsequent to the election, as small business owners approach a new year that will be pivotal in the growth of the American economy and the growth of the American dream. Any resources that were mentioned today can be located at biz2credit.com, where you can find a knowledge center full of research and insights about how small business owners can secure financing, as well as key data that was mentioned by participants in today's webcast around the future of small business and the state of small businesses across the country. You'll be able to read our Latino-owned business study, which was just released last week in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, by visiting that Knowledge Center section of biz2credit.com. As we conclude, we do encourage active participation in all of these webcasts. If you had a question that was not directly addressed by the Congresspeople in today's session, please do post that. One of our funding specialists will be reaching out to all question askers to provide an answer or guidance following the conclusion of the session. We appreciate you. The live stream will now conclude. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.